Well, good afternoon. I'm joined this afternoon by Harris County Engineer John Blunt, who's Director of Public Infrastructure for the county, and from FEMA, Tom Fargione, who you'll get used to seeing probably both of these gentlemen on a regular basis. We really have three topics to talk about today. First, Harris County government is fully operational. But having said that, it's fully operational, but quite a few buildings are closed and will be closed for quite some time. So right now, I would ask John Blunt to come up and update everybody about what county buildings are closed and what the impact is, and then I'll come back and talk about jury summons and things like that. John?
Yes, with the historic flooding on Buffalo Bay, along with extended rainfall events, the downtown county facility was adversely affected. We had significant damage to the Criminal Justice Center, along with the Jury Assembly Building. We had damage to many other facilities, but those two facilities are the most severely damaged. Both of those will not be open for a significant amount of time. We're anticipating the facilities to be closed a minimum of 8 months. And there's also going to be some mitigation efforts that are going to have to occur to remove mold and things of that nature that are probably going to occur. Other county facilities in general are open, but we have two courthouse annexes, one on Cypresswood and one on Clay Road, that both flooded. Both of those facilities will not be open, although we are currently finding lease space to relocate those facilities, and we have one lease already in negotiation, and we anticipate having the other one shortly.
And there are quite a few other buildings that are affected, but those are the ones that affect the public the most. So what does that mean? Well, there will be no civil jury trials in September. That may make some people happy, I don't know. Felony trials will be moved over to the civil courts building. Jury summons can be rescheduled up to 3 times. So, if you're working on your home and you have things you need to take care of, family, home related, if you get a jury summons, you can postpone that and reschedule it up to 3 times. Tomorrow at 9 a.m., there will be a detailed briefing in the Commissioner's courtroom downtown by the various judicial branches of the judiciary, county courts, the felony courts, the civil courts, the family courts, and the jury assembly folks, to make this even more clear as to how the judiciary is going to continue to function without one of the major buildings and without the jury assembly room. The second topic is one I think that's going to be noteworthy for some time to come, and that is debris removal. The county has a contract with a company, DRC, to remove debris from the unincorporated parts of the county and the smaller municipalities that have contracted with the county. That happens to be the same company that is doing debris removal for the city of Houston. It's the same company that performed debris removal after Hurricane Ike. So they are tested. We understand their capabilities, and we've used them before, so there are no surprises here. The Harris County Flood Control District has a separate contract for debris in the channels, and that's with a company called Phillips and Jordan, or known as P&J. All those people are at work, beginning to already remove debris, but I have to discuss some issues. All companies like this bring in the equipment from all over the country, and because not everybody has the kind of handling. If you've driven around, you've seen the debris piles. This is not just ordinary trash that you can pick up and throw in the back of a truck. You need big equipment to pick it up and put it in, particularly large trucks. So what that means is, if there's another event that competes for those assets, then that's a problem. And that other event is called Irma. Nobody knows if or where Hurricane Irma is going to hit the United States, we certainly, from a humanitarian point of view, don't wish ill on anybody, but whether it hits the East Coast or the Gulf Coast, it will make our recovery more difficult simply because of moving resources to other parts of the country. So that could have an impact. So Irma will be a problem regardless. Now, there are a lot of local companies that have dump trucks and equipment, maybe not heavy enough equipment, but Mr. Blunt is taking all those names, passing those on to the contractors, because it's not quite comparable to people taking out their boats to help rescue people. But if you have equipment that is useful, that the contractors can use, by all means, we want to use it. So exactly what's going on and how it's all going to get paid for, I'd like for John to come back up and talk about what is happening. And again, remember, there are 3 separate contracts. One's with Harris County, and that's Harris County unincorporated plus the small cities. And then the city of Houston has a contract. So if you live in the city of Houston, your debris will be removed under that contract. And then the Harris County Flood Control has a separate contract for the various waterways. So, John, what's our latest update and what's going on?
Debris operations are underway in all 4 precincts with both county staff and our contract haulers. This is the largest debris operation ever undertaken by Harris County. Unlike Hurricane Ike, this is mainly construction and demolition debris, which is heavier, more difficult to handle. But like Hurricane Ike, we intend to conduct 3 passes in front of every damaged house to ensure that people have 3 opportunities to have their debris picked up. Each one of those passes will take between 4 and 6 weeks to get through. Therefore, this entire operation should take between 90 and 120 days, very similar to what happened during Hurricane Ike. After that portion of the operation, there'll be another 90 to 120 days where the debris has been hauled off to separate sites where it'll be reduced, compacted, and then hauled to landfills. We ask your patience, and we also ask that it be separated, and we have a brochure here showing, and this is on social media, how to separate the debris to make it easier for the contractors to pick up. The easier it is for them to pick up, the faster this will occur.
A couple of comments that the 4 county commissioners have all asked. It helps if cars aren't parked in the street, because obviously the contractor has to be able to get down the street. One of the commissioners pointed out that if you put your debris too close to your mailbox may be picked up with the debris, so be careful about where you place the debris. And the other thing is, I've had many people say, or I've heard many people say, well, don't move the debris until the insurance adjuster gets there. That is wrong. FEMA says that is wrong. You can take a photo of it. You should do that. But by all means, if somebody comes by to get your debris, let them take the debris. Just get a photo of it. And so as soon as you put it out, get a photo of the debris, and that will help everybody. This is going to be the one issue I think that folks are going to lose patience over, and we understand that. So our team, the city, flood control, everybody is fully aware that people want to get on with their lives, and that's real hard to do if you got a whole mountain of debris sitting in your front yard. So we're going to focus on that. The third topic today are the FEMA disaster recovery centers. While people are registering online, and I'm going to call Tom up in a minute to talk about that, and using the 800 number, there is still a need, a huge need, for centers throughout the region so that people can go and really get answers and get their paperwork handled and get this process. I don't need to tell anybody that it's not an easy process, and it's something we wish we weren't having to go through. So the plan is to have really three types of disaster recovery centers. First, we're going to call them mega centers. I would like to have 3 in Harris County. I'm not sure if we'll get 3 or 2. And in an ideal world, we can't say where they're going to be yet. That should be announced hopefully within a day. We've submitted a list up to Austin, and that's where the final decision is made. But ideally, we would have a mega center in the west, in the east, and centrally located. And if we do that, then a lot of people can get to those and have their situation handled. Then there will be some fixed sites, more the traditional disaster recovery center that many of you remember from Hurricane Ike. There'll be a fixed location, probably for a matter of months, but some of them could be shorter term than that. Those will be in buildings scattered again throughout the county. And then we will have mobile sites. Hopefully Tom can talk about how many mobile sites we can have, but those are trailers that can be moved to different neighborhoods as needed so that we can actually go out to the people and they can have their FEMA questions answered at that point. This is a difficult process, and it is going to require patience. But hopefully we're going to make this as efficient as we can by having these 3 types of disaster recovery centers. So with that, let me call on Tom to come up and talk about how registration's going and what you might expect from these various centers.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, everybody. Registrations are going relatively well. As the judge says, it is a difficult situation. The first thing we want is people to get safe, and that has mostly happened today due to the good work of the first responders. Once they're safe, we want them to register. The best way, I want to make sure I get this right, the best way for folks to register is online, and that's disasterassistance.gov. That is the best way right now for folks to register. They can also, if they have a smartphone, they can use the FEMA app. Going to the FEMA app, it will direct you to how to register. Finally, they can call 1-800-621-3362. That's 1-800-621-FEMA. Those are 3 ways that they can get into the system themselves. And once they're into the system, casework actually begins, and they will start to get help. It is not immediate, but they will start to get help, and we will start to work through the process to get the folks the very best that we can as quickly as we can, and in concert with the priorities established by the state and the county in terms of where we put the centers. So that's the way people can get into the system directly without our interface locally. The other way is the judge mentioned, and that's those fixed sites, and that's those mobile sites, and we're going to do that. We're doing that in concert with the plan developed here locally and blessed by the state. The judge and other officials will be making announcements relative to where and when and how big in the near term. One of the things that, I want to echo what the judge said. I need to manage expectations here. The storm that is barreling down on the Caribbean and East Coast, if it follows true to the track or any of the potential tracks, is going to move resources that might have come here or might be available here to that. We have to do the best we can to cover everyone that's suffering or has the potential to suffer from one of these natural disasters. That does not mean you won't get served. It just means you may get 2 instead of 3, sir. So that's the type of thing we're working through now. We're working contingencies at headquarters and locally as to how we're going to deal with that. And that just won't be FEMA or other federal assets. That will be private resources. A number of assets will be drawn between or allocated between both disasters. Up to this point, I think we've registered 600,000 people in the state, something over 600,000 people, and we're continuing to do that. For people who can't get to those areas, and even though those sites aren't up yet, and even though we don't have the mobile DRCs established yet, we do have FEMA people in the field going into these hard-hit neighborhoods and registering people one at a time as we find them with our team. That is ongoing. We're doing it in hospitals. We're doing it in places where we can also take the burden off our healthcare workers, first responders, other people who need that. So we are effectively trying to utilize the available manpower and get folks registered. Thank you, sir.
So we're to the question stage, so I'm going to ask the first question. If somebody registers, will they have a need to go to one of the centers at any point?
The need to go to the center might just be for follow-up work. People think that DRCs are solely for registration. Actually, what we do, and very quickly into the process, most of the people that go there are going there for help with casework, to see a person, to see other agencies, and to try to get their casework moved along. So they may want to go there, but registering online is the single first best thing to do. In fact, you have to do that.
Now, I ask that because, frankly, I've already had a couple of friends who registered, and the feedback they're getting almost creates more questions than it does answers. And once you can go sit down with a real live person and talk face to face and walk through your situation, I think it's helpful. So that's why these centers are going to be so important. So those are the three topics we wanted to talk about today. We'll be happy to answer any questions. Yes?
Judge, can you give a little more detail, or Mr. Blount, at the Criminal Justice Center, just how extensive is the damage? We're hearing that it's not only on the lower floors, but there's damage on the upper floors. There's been a lot of talk about potentially some sprinkler damage, and can you just clear that up? Because there's a lot of ideas floating around there.
Yeah, the question is what kind of damage occurred at the Criminal Justice Center. There is damage in the basement. The submarine doors did hold. However, the water got high enough. It was actually approximately 3 foot outside the building at the front level. So if you walk through the front doors, the water would have been 3 foot high. Now, it did not get inside the building, but it ran through the walls into the buildings. We had a significant amount of rain, so we got rain inside the buildings. We also had a failure of a chilled water system because of wet controls, which caused a significant amount of damage on the upper floors.
And forgive me, how did that happen when a chilled water system fails? Educate us, please, sir.
The chilled water system is a pressurized system, and the controller got wet, told the system there was zero pressure, so it upped the pressure and burst the line.
So you're saying the water damage was from the sprinkler system in the ceiling?
Not the sprinkler system, a chilled water system, the system that conditions the building, provides air conditioning. But in a commercial building, it's actually done with water as opposed to air.
How many floors are we talking, sir?
Most floors have damage. There's 20 floors. All of them have some damage, not all from that. Some floors are much more damaged than others. There was also damage from rain driven through windows.
You said 8 months. Obviously, you can't do business in the interim there.
You said how long it's going to take. It's going to take 8 months. Another thing that happened is there was a backup of the city sewage system. The backup sewage, and it was under such pressure, it not only went on the first floor, but multiple floors up. There was that much surcharge. We had sewage up to the second floor coming out of the commodes. So a significant amount of surcharge on the sewage system.
So to clarify, this is kind of the awful triple play. You had sewage from the ground up. You had the chilled water system that malfunctioned, obviously due to the conditions, and then you had windows.
Yes, there were three things. We had obviously the water coming in through the envelope of the building. We had the failure of the chilled water system, and then we had sewage coming up through the gravity sewer system.
Judge, is this worse than Allison, I should say?
Well, I didn't live here for Allison, so I can't answer that. It's definitely worse than Ike, simply because of the extent of the impact throughout the county. That's why I wanted to talk about debris removal. I think
No, I mean the courthouse.
Yeah, the courthouse. There's no question. This is the worst that we've had certainly since I've been judge in the last 10 years.
You got an approximate price tag of what this is going to take to make right?
Do we have an approximate price tag of what this is going to take, just on the county buildings?
We're still at the point of assessing. You've got to remember, we've drained the buildings out. We're now testing mechanical and electrical equipment, so we don't have an amount because we don't know what is ruined and what is not until it dries out and we can power it up. But it's in the millions of dollars of damage.
question. These files, are they going to be moved to is there a secondary location in mind where we can move these files to? And if some of them are damaged, what happens from there?
The question is what we'll be doing with the files, the case files. The case files will be moved. If they're damaged, they can be restored. And they are being moved to the location that the various courts need them at. And that's being done right now.
What about the agencies that are in the building itself, like the district attorney's office? Are they being impacted, and if so, in what ways?
So the question is what about the other groups in the building? All of the building, the occupants in that building, whether it be the district attorney's office, the courtrooms, are being relocated. And all that is being done or has been done. Several of the facilities have already been relocated. The other ones are being done right now. It's my job to make sure there's available space. It's the court's, the judge's job to figure out where the best place to put that court is in.
The courthouse suffered significant damage after Allison, and a number of changes were made. What were those changes, and did those changes help in the situation?
The question is, there were a number of changes made at the courthouse after Tropical Storm Allison, and what were those changes, and were they effective? Yes, we put what we call submarine doors in the tunnel, and the tunnel did not flood into the building, so that worked. We also put flood doors on the building, and if you saw pictures of it, you see about 3 foot high. There's a big block there that prevents water from coming in, and that prevented water from coming in through the doorway. However, it seeped in through the side of the buildings because the water was up so long and so high.
So it came in through the side into the basement?
Yes, it came up through the side into the basement as opposed to through the tunnel like last time.
And the sewage through the restroom facility?
Yes, it came up through the restroom facilities.
Judge, who's the point person now? You're a logistics guy for the tremendous juggling act. You have 38 courts in that building alone. Do you have the space? You obviously can't wave a magic wand and say, well, this is going to happen overnight.
Right. That is what tomorrow's press conference is going to be about. The various court administrators, the administrative judges, they'll be addressing all those questions tomorrow, and I think they're probably still working today because it is a massive task relocating all of those courtrooms.
I mean, as I understand, FEMA is going to be sort of providing a lot of funds as you're going and as you're sort of finding what's wrong, and can help sort of jumpstart some of the repairs or jumpstart some of the fixes. Do you have a sense of how much money has sort of exchanged so far, or what you're asking for, or what the next steps are?
And Tom, you can correct me. I don't think we're talking about FEMA front-loading repairs to buildings necessarily. I think we are talking about on debris removal having some front load, but I don't think. Yeah, this is something we keep careful track. And the good news is, Harris County was in good financial shape going in and has a AAA bond rating and all that, and it's a darn good thing. We can get through this until we get the reimbursement, but then the congressional effort is, as we saw yesterday with the entire congressional delegation saying they're going to be working for us. I'm confident that we'll be supported in the end, but we're fortunate in that we have the wherewithal to deal with it right now and to make these things happen. Anything else? Yes.
Can you describe a mega center and how that would be different than, say, like a site?
Basically, it will. Can I describe a mega center and what's the difference? This term disaster recovery center has been used already, and it's been used sort of erroneously. There are different sizes, basically. Clearly, a mobile site is one in a trailer that you get into a neighborhood and people can come up and it'll have a few people there. A fixed disaster recovery center is one that will be in a building in a particular location, mainly to serve that area. Then the mega centers, and this is why I hope they're put where I've suggested. If you put one in the far west of Harris County, then Fort Bend and Waller and surrounding counties can all come in, and you have a lot more people and a lot more resources there. Same thing on the east. If you've heard me during this entire event, I keep saying, yes, Harris County, but all of these smaller counties around us were equally impacted, but they don't necessarily have the ability to deal with these. So if we can put one in the east that Chambers County and Liberty County and places like that, people from there can come to, I just think that's the right thing to do. So that's what I mean by a mega center, something that will draw regionally.
Mr. Blount, one more thing on the chilled water system, just so I understand. Where would that water actually release from?
Your question is, where would the chilled water be released from? These are pipes that are run throughout every floor, and unlike your house, which has air ducts, these are essentially water ducts. And when they're overpressurized, they basically break. Like you would have a frozen pipe, and water would run in your house, it would run in our buildings.
And multiple breaks? Or
Multiple breaks.
On multiple floors?
Multiple breaks. We don't know the extent. We have not inspected all the line. I mean, you can see where the water has landed, and we found breaks, but we haven't gone through all the piping.
Put it in perspective as a county engineer. Is this just, I mean, have you seen anything like it?
I've been here 30 years. I was through Allison. I was through Ike, and this is the worst event I've ever seen.
Do you think the measures that you put into place, I mean, you mentioned that those doors work, but still water got inside of the jury room. I mean, did it actually work? Was it effective?
You're asking if our activities or mitigation after Allison was effective. Yes. Had we not done it, it would have been far worse. It's bad now, but it would have been far worse. The levels of Buffalo Bio downtown were historic, past the 500-year level. It was not expected to get that high. And that the reason, I mean, because of that, it wasn't mitigated that high.
All right. Anything else?
I have a question for
Okay.
FEMA.
For FEMA?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I was just wondering, I know you mentioned it could take some time. I know somebody that I was talking to said that they've, been waiting and they got a call, and they said that you don't qualify. Is that correct? That somebody would already get a call saying they don't qualify, an automated message, or kind of what can they expect?
They could certainly get a call. Oh, I'm sorry. The question is, folks have gotten return calls saying they don't qualify. Is that right? People will get those phone calls. We still encourage them to go to the DRCs or to call again. We have appeals processes, and they can go through those appeals processes, and then we'll work with the state and local governments to look at other ways to go back and ensure that the right verdict was rendered and that the folks truly didn't qualify or they may qualify. And again, here, this is a critical piece. The fact that they don't qualify for us doesn't mean that there isn't other help out there through the VOAGs, through other agencies of the state and local government. And we will work with those folks, and that's what casework is about, to get them tied in with someone that can provide some eligible help for them.
And I know there's probably a variety of reasons, but what are some of the reasons in which they would not qualify?
There's a variety of reasons. And to sit here and try to go through all of them, that's why we do individual case work, because there are reasons and exceptions, and all of this has to be taken into the context of the whole of the person's presentation.
After registering, what can a homeowner do to their home before an inspector comes out?
After registering, what can folks do to their home before the inspector comes out? We typically like to get the inspectors out as quickly as we can, but there's a large need and finite inspectors. Our recommendation is for people to take pictures, to document, then save their home. We want people to get damaged material out of the house as quickly as we can, and the quicker we remove that material, then the less damage and a better chance to save those homes.
How long do you plan to keep the centers open? I mean, how long could this take?
That's how long could the centers be open? As the judge said, that will be based on need and only based on need.
What kind of scams, particularly related to the FEMA and home repair, can people expect to see? What should they be on the lookout for?
There's material that will be put out. What kind of scams can people look out for? Anybody that has to do that is contracting work for their home, they just have to be very careful to ensure that the people coming in are legitimate contractors. There are numbers to call, there are state officials who deal with that, there are federal officials who deal with that, and the Joint Information Center will be posting information on that to the public.
How are you identified when FEMA comes to someone's home? I mean, you have IDs.
They have ID, they will be, how are people identified when they come to their home as inspectors, sir? They will have ID. We will publish in an area what that looks like. Law enforcement, everyone is made aware of that. But there will be a way to identify those as FEMA inspectors.
You know, one other comment I'll make in light of your question about people being rejected already, don't give up. The fact that you get the initial rejection from FEMA, you know, this isn't a negative. I mean, they're just looking at certain formulas, and if you don't fall in their right formula, then you might get rejected. But clearly there are going to be extenuating circumstances for all kinds of folks. Also, we'll be prepared to talk a little bit later. There are long-term case management committees set up through the United Way, where we have various charitable organizations and people who are engaged in social work that can also help in this process. And they're used to dealing with people who are going through this. I mean, for example, the organization Baker Ripley that set up the NRG Center as a shelter, they do this kind of thing on a regular basis where they help people work through the maze of government forms and government processes. So don't give up. Nobody said this is going to be easy, but FEMA they really are here to help. And so if your first response from them is negative, maybe you'll find another way. That's why we've got to get these disaster recovery centers up as soon as possible, so that people can go talk to a real live person. I know everybody's like me. You call a phone number, and particularly if you get some computer, can I talk to a person here? You just start hitting zero. Well, that's what these centers are set up to do. So we just wanted to say they're coming quickly, and one of those three forms you should be able to get to. Thank you very much.
Who makes that decision? Who makes that decision to open the centers?
Who makes the decision to open the centers and where are they located? The county reaches out to all the municipalities in the county, plus the county commissioners, and people submit ideas of where they should be, and then the staff here looks at them, vets them. I mean, for example, I had a conversation with a mayor today who had 2 locations, and we talked about which one's really better, and then we send that to the state, and then the state, working with FEMA, makes the final decision as to where they're going to go. But it would be unusual for them to do something totally different than what's been recommended, I would think.
So we're just waiting on the state and FEMA at this point.
Right, and they're moving quickly. But at this point, there really are no official disaster recovery centers set up yet, but they will be very shortly. Thank you.